There are stories that people try to explain, and then there are the ones they quietly avoid. This one comes from a remote forest in the Pacific Northwest, a place known for strange signals, vanishing hikers, and a figure locals call the shadow person. In the early fall a few years ago, an experienced outdoorsman named Daniel went on a short solo hike. The trail was simple, the weather calm, nothing unusual. When Daniel didn't return that evening, a search team went out to look for him. They found his car exactly where it should be, but something felt wrong. The driver's door was left open, his backpack was still on the seat, and the entire forest around the trailhead felt almost paused, completely quiet, like the trees were waiting for something. The team followed his footprints into the woods, clear, steady, normal, until suddenly they ended. Not faded, not turned, just ended. Right in the middle of the path, as if Daniel had simply stepped off the ground and vanished into thin air. For 2 days, the rescuers searched. Nothing. But on the third night, sometime after midnight, their radios picked up a strange crackling signal. At first it sounded like static, then a voice, a distorted whisper, broke through. A voice that sounded like Daniel's. It said one word: watching. They tried to answer, but the signal dropped. A few minutes later, it returned, clearer, quieter, and much closer. The whisper said, "Don't turn around." The coordinates of the signal pointed toward a narrow canyon. Locals avoid it, claiming the place has a heaviness in the air, a pressure that makes people feel watched. When the search team stepped inside the canyon, the temperature shifted immediately. No breeze, no insects, just a cold stillness, like something had pressed the entire world's volume button to 0. And then, they saw him. Daniel was standing near the canyon wall, facing the rock, perfectly still. Not tied, not trapped, just standing there, like he was listening to something inside the stone. His radio lay on the ground next to him, softly clicking with bits of static and broken signal tones. They called his name. No reaction. They moved closer. And that's when one of the rescuers froze. A long, thin shadow stretched across the canyon floor, ending right behind Daniel. But there was no person behind him. No object. Nothing at all that could cast a shape like that. The rescuers swept the canyon with their lights. The shadow didn't move. It didn't bend. It didn't react to the light in any natural way. Then all their radios burst to life at the exact same moment, a sharp wave of static. Beneath the noise, the same voice whispered, "It moved." The team spun around with their lights, but the shadow was gone, completely erased. Then Daniel slowly stepped back from the rock wall, blinking like he'd just woken up. He looked confused, exhausted, and unable to explain how he got there or why he was standing in the canyon in the dark. When they asked what he remembered, he said only one thing: "I wasn't alone." He described the feeling of something walking just behind him on the trail, not touching him, not speaking, just following, step for step. And every time he tried to turn around, the air around him would warp, like a broken signal on an old screen. He said that once he entered the canyon, the presence stopped behind him and stayed there. Search teams later reviewed audio and video logs. No people, no animals. But in several recordings, at the very edge of the frame, a tall, flickering silhouette appeared for a split second, right where the shadow had been. To this day, no one can explain the signals, the disappeared footprints, or the impossible shadow. And Daniel? He says that sometimes, when he walks near the woods at dusk, the air suddenly grows quiet, then still, then heavy. And when he feels something standing just behind him, he doesn't turn around. Because the one time he did, the shadow on the ground looked just a little too long to be his. And if you want more strange, dark, and mysterious stories, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments what you think was really following Daniel in that canyon. Your theory might be the one that finally makes this story make sense.